Wax on, wax off, wax on. What movie am I referring to? If you know, you're probably a contemporary of mine, Gen X or older. And if you don't, then you got to study your 80s karate movie history. So I want to talk today about the phased reopening of New York State and New York City and how that's going to relate a little bit to real estate. And then also talk about the timeline in general of the flattening of the curve, which I don't hear so many people really talking about. First, the phased reopening. So Governor Cuomo just a few days ago announced a plan to reopen New York based on the fact that we are in over the hump of the number of coronavirus cases that are getting hospitalized. So that is good. And that's been the case for several days now. I don't know, we're not quite at the 14-day mark, which is where the CDC says it's okay to then start phased reopenings. But we are under lockdown officially until May 15th, which is still a little more than a couple of weeks away. And the question is whether or not that's going to be extended and what is the summer going to look like, particularly in this case, not just for going to the beach, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to doing more than usual, and then, but also for the real estate industry. So let me take you first to the Governor Cuomo's thing here. This is on governor.ny.gov/news. So amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Cuomo outlined a phased plan to reopen New York and reimagine a new normal for the state, starting with construction and manufacturing. The plan will be implemented in phases based on regional analysis and determinations. The CDC recommendations recommends that once a region experiences a 14-day decline in hospitalizations, they may begin a phased reopening. Okay, so they'll be closely monitoring that, as you probably can imagine. I want to read through some of these parts of the phased plan and just discuss a little bit how that may affect things. So phase one will include opening construction and manufacturing functions with low risk. So, you know, I haven't studied this stuff, but I would guess that a lot of construction is like open air outside construction. That seems to make some sense that they would be focusing on that first. Phase two will open certain industries based on priority and risk level. Business considered more essential with inherent low risks of infection in the workplace and to customers will be prioritized, followed by other business considered less essential or those that present a higher risk of infection spread. As the infection rate declines, the pace of reopening businesses will be increased. The region must not open attractions or businesses that would draw large numbers of visitors from outside the local area. There will be 2 weeks between each phase to monitor the effects, and the plan will be implemented with multi-state coordination, especially in downstate New York, i.e. the tri-state area where we have New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut all very close together. And it will also coordinate the opening of transportation systems, parks, schools, beaches, etc. The phased reopening will also be based on individual businesses and industries plans that include new measures to protect employees and consumers, make physical workspace safer, and implement processes that lower risk of infection in the businesses. And the state is consulting with the businesses on that. So I just want to talk about this for a second in terms of how it will look for the real estate industry, or should probably look for the real estate industry. The first thing is that, you know, just imagine for a moment we open the real estate industry up, showings and are open. Open houses, I don't see them allowing that anytime soon, but showings even. So let's say that you've got a buyer and that buyer has coronavirus and is asymptomatic, and they are walking around at showings. Let's say they do 20 showings in a week. That's 20 potential exposures where they are in the house of the apartment of the sellers, and those sellers, in addition to the agent, the seller is then exposed to that potential coronavirus carrier as well. Then you have the agent. So let's say I'm working with 5 different buyers, and I see all these 5 different buyers in a week, and we go into 20 different places each buyer that week, or 10 places that week, or even 5 places that week, it becomes exponentially greater. So I think that there are going to have to be rules put around how real estate showings are done. For instance, no touching, like only the real estate agent touches things, wearing masks, all these things. I think that has to happen, something like that, in order for showings to really even be considered to be safe and not a potential real risk for spreading coronavirus. So with that in mind, I also think that we're probably going to see the real estate showings pushed back past May 15th. I think June 15th or even July maybe will be a time when they may start considering that more. And it'll depend a little bit on the conversation between the government and the industries. So that's just something to think about. Now, the other thing to think about overall, because a lot of what I've said in past videos, if you haven't been watching, is that these the real estate opening up, the real estate market and industry opening back up and becoming busy again is going to be also very affected by the economy, the overall economy, and the employment rates. Like right now, last week we had 26 million people filing for unemployment. Now, it's based on rates that we're seeing, this number is probably going to shoot up even more. I asked the question whether 30 million was a realistic number for May, and it seems like it may be a realistic number for May as of now. So the economy has to normalize before the real estate industry is going to normalize. And for that to happen, we have to be open. Now, for it to be open, like we were just discussing, this phased opening, we also have to have the continued downslope of the coronavirus. And one of the things that people don't talk about so much is that whenever you saw these flattening the curve graphs, right, all these projections of what happens when the coronavirus spikes and exceeds the demand of the capacity of the healthcare system versus flattening the curve and keeping the number of hospitalizations below the below the capacity of the healthcare system, those flattened curves are always really way longer than the spikes. And I'm going to show you what I mean. If you just go and search on Google for flattening of the curve, flatten the curve, and you look at images, you can see all the images here of the curves. And what do we see? We see big spikes versus the flattened curves. And the flattening of those curves elongates them. It elongates the time that you're dealing with it in every single video, right? There's no flattening of the curve where it doesn't take a lot longer for things to get back to a relative normal, okay? So this is an important thing to think about when you're trying to forecast what's going to be going on. We have successfully flattened the curve in New York State. That also means that this is going to be going on for a longer period of time, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're trying to predict, like, well, when is the market going to reopen? I think that a lot of these things are going to take longer than we think. So now with that, I want to talk about one other thing, which has to do with the pricing of things and also what kind of sales that we're seeing for new places going under contract, which there are some, and also closings that have happened recently. And there's a theme with those things, and it has to do with new development. I'm going to talk about that in my next video, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you later. Stay home, stay healthy, try and get some exercise, maybe even fit in a little meditation into your day, relax, and I'll talk to you later.